Just wanted to sort of give my feedback on that a bit, that he is not representative of the majority of scholarship, as I'm sure you're aware. The majority of scholarship says that textual criticism, we've got to the point where so you can never be absolutely certain, because we don't have the orthography, we don't have the actual complete manuscript, the original manuscript. What we have is, because we have so many, we have 1,000 manuscripts now going back to the 2nd century. By collecting together and collating information, we can get back to what scholars say. There's only 2 passages in the New Testament which are extended passages which we're not sure about, and they're 12 verses long each. We know of them, but it's true. There's a handful, like less than 5 passages where there's 1, 2 verses long. That is in our Bibles with the verses, other things obviously we have the verses in the original. And the rest of the variants are only issues of like 1 word issues, or the accents within words, or the accents within words. This is the issue. There's no major doctrinal issues of change that have happened because of these variations of scribal errors. We can get by collating them all together. I just wanted to hear your thing back on that. You mentioned the KJV and about 8% of the material taken from the KJV as being sort of issued with. Pick you up on that about the KJV only used 6 manuscripts for their translation, as I'm sure you're aware, and the oldest one they had back when they made that was 500 years previous. And now with the Bibles that are being produced now, like the ESV, they're using like 1,000 manuscripts going back to the 2nd century. So it's been refined, and that's why the 8% has changed. I just wanted to pick you up on, am I on to make a second point, or is that just off?
Could you try to summarize your 2 questions?
Oh, my summary is...
Because I don't want to forget your first one.
Pardon?
I don't forget the first thing you said.
Okay.
In my mind.
My summary is, Bart Ehrman is very much a scholar on the fringe of textual criticism. He's extremely skeptical, and he's not representative of the weight, the body of scholarship. The body of scholarship says what we have in the New Testament is to a very, very high percentage of probability what the originals were written. And that's what I'd say. You'll come back to that.
Sure. Thank you very much for your question. When it comes to Bart Ehrman, I do realize that he is on the fringe with biblical scholarship and textual criticism. But I also understand some of the reasons he's on the fringe, because of a lot of the conclusions that he comes up with. And I do not in any way say that I agree with most of the conclusions that he comes up with as far as theologically and ideologically. We do draw our, I guess you could say, we do draw our differences there when it comes to the Bible itself. But as far as some of the texts that he's written on textual criticism, from what I've looked at them and have seen that they have been found on a lot of opinions, especially a lot of them were certified by Bruce Metzger, one of his teachers. Bruce Metzger is definitely not on the fringe. Bruce Metzger is kind of refuted in textual criticism. But my challenge would be just to go to look at the points that he makes as far as the textual documents themselves go, and then take them one by one. And if he's wrong, he's wrong, but it needs to be proven. It needs to be proven he's wrong. The books like Jesus Interrupted and some of the college textbooks that he's written on textual criticism and studying the New Testament. That's the only thing that I would say, that I've taken a look at some of the verses. That's what I mean by, like, we correspond, and I study it, but he sends me a lot of manuals before he publishes them, lets me look at them, because I've been talking to him for quite a long time now. We do draw many very different conclusions, but when it comes to, as you were saying, the manuscripts, and then going back 1,000 manuscripts with this Bible and there's maybe 12 verses here, 12 verses there, that there is some opinion whether or not they were originally there. They interpreted later. Some of them came through the Latin Vulgate and were introduced, and we don't know how. I would say I agree to disagree on some points, that there are not as many as some people claim. Some people go a little bit too far on the amount of differences and the amount of maybe what they would call contradictions or omissions or whatever. But I don't want to say that there's so few that they don't really go to the root of theology. Because I'm of the opinion that there are enough to go to the root of theology. And if there were not enough, for there to be any mistake in the book. For there to be any mistake in the book is a verification that it is God's message tampered with. And if there is one mistake on it, it gives me the illusion to be able to doubt any of it, especially if it goes against something else which the weight of it is more verified. And this is what I say now as a Muslim. This is the challenge I make in textual criticism, is that we have the New Testament. A lot of the authorship unknown, no originals. Even if we have 10,000 manuscripts, that a lot of them agree together. There are disagreements with them as well. There are contradictions with them as well, even in what we have now from the Gospel. We're going to have to verify them somehow. We're going to have to verify them at the end of the day somehow, what Jesus really said, what Jesus really did, what he teach, what he preached. Even if there were no textual variations there, even the language point was lost a lot. That's a contradiction in itself, to say what Jesus really said or did. When the language he spoke, there's no documents written of that. The only pieces we have are Eli, 17. It's the only Aramaic existing within the Testament. Is that it needs to be verified by something. My challenge to everyone is that they should at least take a look at God's testament of his last testament of the Quran. Because in the Quran, God says that this came as a verification for that which was sent before it. It came to verify that which was sent before it and to back up that which was sent before it. So it does do good service in filling in a lot of those gaps and questions that are made. But at the end of the day, when it comes to textual criticism, who's on the fringe and not on the fringe, it's because of ideologies that they eventually derive or conclusions that they come to. I personally believe that there are enough contradictions to lead to theology. And that's my personal opinion. Anyone can disagree with me. That's opinions that I disagree with. Just like, for instance, the verse about Jesus and the adultery is a questionable verse. It is one of the questionable verses that goes to the root theology, because it's used that he had the right to forgive sins. When he said that the first one amongst you cast a stone, he had no right to do that. That's a questionable passage. Also the passage that there are three that bear record: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. These three are one Father, the blood. This verse in 1 John. There's a questionable passage as well. It does not appear in the Latin Vulgate. This goes to the heart of theology. It's the only Trinity that's ever mentioned anywhere that's mentioned in this type of statement coming from Jesus. So this is a questionable statement. This is why I say that some of these things go to the heart of theology. And also beyond that, we have to go back, as you say, to the first couple of centuries, where we have a lot of these manuscripts, and see what were the opinions of the scholars at that time. What were their opinions? What were the opinions of the scholars that were waging in the first 3 centuries of Christianity? They had very good opinions. To think that there was one solitary opinion about the life of Jesus Christ during the first 3 to 4 centuries of Christianity is a misrepresentation of history. We know very well that there was a difference of opinion. We see with Josephus, we see with Erroneous himself, out of North Africa, and his opinion of Jesus being of a different and unlike nature of God. We see the wrangling that went on that incited the councils of Nicaea, the different councils of Nicaea, and what would be canon, what would be the Nicaean Creed. How did all of this come about? We need to go look at that to verify this book, because what we have now is not only a textual, critical endeavor with the ESV, but what is left out. Why was all of these things chosen? Why was only Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John chosen? Why were the 13 letters of Paul chosen, the Acts and so on? Why was this chosen? Who was it chosen by? We have to go back and see that as well, because there are more books out there than that, even though they're called Apocrypha, which means without evidence. We have to go to why are they Apocrypha? Because there was a systematic eradication of these books after the Council of Nicaea. A systematic eradication of people who followed these books and who believed in these ideologies. Who were called heretics, hung at the stake, burned at the cross, so on and so forth. So we really need to go back and kind of rehash that debate, because that debate ended very abruptly with Constantine converting to Christianity and issuing the Council of Nicaea and initiating the Nicene Creed. Everything just kind of came to an abrupt end. There was no more scholarly debate. You know, understand what I'm saying? That was a real crime that was done against the Word of God, was that scholarly debate was cut off. And there was no longer this wrangling of issues. It was just this, you can do this, and if you don't, you're out. And that's one problem that I have. I suggest that we go back and look at that as well. That goes into the heart of textual criticism as well.
Would you like to respond?
Sure.
Maximum 30 seconds.
Maximum 30 seconds? Oh, wow. Just quickly, on the issue of... you were saying about if the messenger, if like the text has been changed through the ages, or the messenger is not good enough. Let's come back on you. The message from the